Well, hello there. It is I, Jennifer. I'm so happy to be here with you. This is Thriving Life podcast show. My husband says it is a show. And you know what? I'm with him. It is. So let's see. Today, the topic that might have caught your attention, what I got from talking to dead people. What? Where did I go on the screen? I'm not sure. So, yeah, what I got from talking to dead people. And so, what did what sort of spurred this conversation? Well, recently I went to a conference called IANS, which is about people who've had near-death experiences. And there were some amazing speakers, Dr. Moody, who did the original research on it, and people who had NDEs. And uh, then there was also the beautiful woman, Dr. Diane, that did the telepathy tapes and is still doing them, I guess. Awesome human being. And so many others at this glorious event in Chicago recently. And I was there. I heard about it about 8 days before it happened from a now friend who I had no reason to even, trust what he was saying, but I just had this instinct that I needed to go. So I changed my entire schedule to go to Chicago. And the reason I went is because I have had 3 NDEs and near-death experiences. So haven't you ever wondered what it's like to die and come back? Have you ever wondered what it is that experience actually shows you, what it can tell you? And have you ever had a sense that there's something more, but you can't really touch it and you'd love to give a name to it? Well, today is all about that, because this isn't just about my near-death experiences or what those have to teach us, which is world-changing, honestly. What happens in near-death experiences shows us things that absolutely can change life, change the world, change it all. And I hadn't fully owned the NDEs that I had, but they most certainly gave me a sense of how good it can be. Also, that is where a lot of the things that I teach and the things that I know, and the reason I'm a holographic seer and all of that came from these NDEs, actually. So let's go. Let me also just tickle your telomeres a little bit here. You probably have been influenced by non-physical supporters endlessly every day, and you don't even know it. And I want you to be able to identify how you know you have a squad, a team, because I know it for sure. And I know that everybody does, because it's part of what I saw. Wouldn't it be great to know that that was true? Also, for those of you that are just joining us, I'd love for you to put in your name and your word for the day. And yeah, much to converse about. Before I go there, I want to let you know that one of the gifts of going away with us or going on a wide awakening adventure is that you get to actually spend and be activated by 5 days with me and the team. And we're going to Costa Rica to an incredibly beautiful resort on adventures that actually activate some of your innate abilities And actually, we'll be doing exercises that help you to embody the abilities that help you be a multidimensional person on this three-dimensional planet Earth. And that makes you a member of the thriving operating system. Listen, people who use their multidimensional abilities live in overflow of all things that they desire. But when we don't understand how the thriving operating system works, and the fastest way to get there is to experience it firsthand, not intellectually try to get it. Intellectually understanding is the booby prize. So on this trip, it's all about spending some connected, amazing time with soul family and really enjoying our time together. And I get to see you and know you. We do some holographic reading in our group sessions, and then we'll go out and play with the sloths and do some cool exercises in the ocean and so many things, sunsets and sunrises and all the things. So I look forward to seeing you there. Now, let's dive into the story that, let's say, the middle near-death experience that I had, because the first one I had was when I was little, a very high fever. I got up to 106. And post that near-death experience, I was able to talk to animals. I knew what my dog was thinking, which is why I love dogs so much, because the simplicity, yet the care and the clarity, the single focusedness of a dog in particular, because that's who I had the good fortune of being able to uh, chat with our dog, Muffin, at the time. It's just incredible. And I didn't realize that. And by the way, after that as well, I knew I could fly. And that feeling of knowing I could fly was not so much. I remember catching myself a couple of times standing on the edge of my bed, ready with my arms out, ready to jump off the edge of my bed, which that would have hurt in 3D. But the reason I knew that is because in my dreams, I was able to go out of my body all the time. Maybe some of you actually have spent time out of your body. I'd love to hear flying around, or you had the impetus to fly. By the way, some of these abilities are not innate to people that have NDEs, but an NDE is kind of like the fast track. I would say that there's no going back after an NDE. And the thing is, from doing plant medicine or some of the things that people do out there, you can get some of these innate abilities too, but there is some going back from that. You can come back because there are filters that happen with plant medicine, but once you get the codes, it's all the stuff that we've asked for, right? So what happened to me on the NDE that I want to share today? Well, I was in the house that I called the tree house in Southern Ontario, Stouffville, Ontario. And I was getting my first client of the day. I ran a very large integrative health clinic, and I was downstairs in my office. There was a big waiting room that had like 25-foot ceilings that put you right in the forest. And I remember to this day who my client was. She helped kids do their dance competitions internationally. She was really cool. And I was sitting in front of her, and all of a sudden I had this feeling like what I as a soul was thinking and what was coming out of my mouth were two different things. And I was like, what is going on? My words are not matching what I'm thinking. And then I really tried to get my brain to form the words to get them out my vocal cords. And all of a sudden I wasn't feeling good. And I think she called upstairs. And then I had probably 3 staff there that all of whom to this day I'm just so appreciative for. And Jeannie and the rest called an ambulance because what happened was I curled up in a ball. I think I threw up, and I think my personality changed, they tell me, and I went into an immediate coma. My brain was inflamed. Now, what you don't know is that prior to that, I had been in the Bahamas. I had been there with my boyfriend, my connection from my boyfriend that who uh, who he and I had spent some really good time together. And I remember the night before leaving, I just had this overwhelming feeling, and I didn't know how to interpret it because I didn't know what I know now. But I had this overwhelming feeling, don't go home, don't go home, don't go home. Stay, 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 stay in the Bahamas. And I didn't know what that meant. And I thought, oh, that's just, my ego wanting to stay with my boyfriend. And it was actually my higher levels. I was crying. I was rocking back and forth crying because I didn't know how to interpret it was a full body no. And the next morning this is a lesson for all of you. You can override your greater intuition. Of course you can. You can have your personality and your fear and your responsibilities and your shoulds actually override and push through your intuition. People do it all the time. You have to try harder. You have to force harder. You have to stay up late. You have to make this happen. You have to prove yourself. All of those energies just push on through and bypass. But I was in the Bahamas swimming with dolphins, which is why I could feel, what I was to do. And this is a couple of days before I came home to get that first client. And then I flew home anyways and, spent a day by myself and then had this first client and then went into the coma and then went to the hospital. And what you don't know is that I had left my husband and I knew that I was to be with this guy who took people all over the world swimming with dolphins. And I was to learn to swim in the ocean and learn to be fearless and all the things. And I was with him before this thing happened. But my former husband, I was, the night before I went into the coma, he had come over to let me know that he deliberately, there was some energy in it. It was not good. And he let me know that he was going to live with someone else almost, I don't know if it was spitefully or whatever it was. It doesn't matter. And the next morning is when I got meningitis. So the timeline was, broke up with my former husband. In and out of conversations with him, he knew fully about my boyfriend because my boyfriend was what catalyzed that I knew that life could be more. So I was spending more time with my boyfriend than Bahamas. We were discussing it all. I had the dream when we were in the Bahamas and the very disturbing idea that I should not go home. Went home anyway. A day later, my husband came over and kind of had a strange energy of letting me know about this move he was going to make. Morning after, I wake up, have my client, meningitis. So then I go and I don't wake up. I think I don't wake up for 4 or 5 days. And I spent some time somewhere else. I spent some time in the ethers. I spent some time communing with my family that were past. I spent some time making choices of whether I was going to stay or go, actually, because this divorce was extremely hard on me. And when I woke up, symbolically on either side of me, On one side was my former husband, or my soon-to-be former husband, and on the other side was my boyfriend. They were both holding my hands. So there was a tremendous amount of love in the room, and that's what had me wake up. That was the first time I woke up, but it was temporary. I pretty much immediately went back to the coma and was moved from that hospital to a much more, you know, big and professional hospital. So I knew when I finally woke up in that second big hospital and they pumped me full of antivirals and antibiotics that my choice to stay in my body was the thing that saved my life. And yes, the antibiotics and antivirals had a chance to work because I chose, but it was very clear to me that my choice to live superseded the antivirals and the antibiotics. It's my choice that allowed them to work. And as soon as I woke up after about a half a day, um, what happened was I talked to the doctor and I said, I need to get off these. Now, I'm not recommending anybody do that, but there's some strange, weird knowing that started to happen in my body. Like I just knew stuff. I don't recommend, this was not an anti-doctor move. Okay. So don't be doing that kind of stuff without consulting a doctor. But in my case, I just knew. And then what happened was yeah, I started to be able to only know the present. I started to forget or not be concerned with the past at all. I started to know that my path forward was really about building bridges between people who um, didn't know that life was happening for them, which I now knew. I probably got a little bit overly Pollyanna about how great life was meant to be. And I projected that everyone else would be able to see that too, since it's pretty self-centered, since my near-death experience. Pretty funny, but people don't. They don't. And those of us that kind of get that, that not only is there a great light beyond when we're near death, but that we're so supported by the essences of those on the other side. We're so incredibly encouraged, given to, directed by, cheer-led infinitely by them, to the point where I didn't care that I had lost my mind, really. I'd lost my memory entirely. Um, I wasn't even frightened, actually, now that I think of it. I mean, I had relied so much on my intellect, on my knowing, on my smarts, on my ability to speak, and I honestly was still slurring my words and couldn't speak and didn't know how to get it back, and I couldn't remember things, and it was really tough for about a month or 2. In fact, I don't even know how financially I made it through all of that now that I think about it. But we did. Because I just knew that I was supportive. And what, isn't it interesting that without the fear, everything I needed came to me? I had no fear whatsoever. And from there, at the time, it was an integrative health practice, but I was already starting to be able to see people holographically. And after this, I knew that it would be next level ability to see uh, their dead people that were their cheerleading teams, but also their biochemistry, their biophysical, the biophysics of what was going on in their body. I could see epigenetically what was happening to them, how their mind was affecting their body. I could ask the right questions to have, and I was guided strongly not ever to give people, well, unless I'm told to, or unless it feels right to give people the answers, but to actually empower them with being able to do it themselves. so much of what's going, and that kind of knowing is so needed right now because there are epic amounts of people giving their power away to others, power away to information, power away to dogma, power away to sides, power away to conspiracy theories. And I knew from then on that my job on this planet was to assist human beings to actually have their power come from their own innate knowing, not from something outside of them. It's fine to get input and information, but if you're going to get input and information, what's really important is that you run it through your own innate knowing, not just give your power away to the person who's giving it to you and follow that. So since then, and if you have any questions, you can put it in the chat. Since that time, I have found myself to be falling in love with people at a level that is strange and wonderful, to the point where uh, I had to delineate, especially with men, that this love that I felt was not the romantic kind of love. This love that I felt was just love. And that love just is. That's another thing that I got from this experience. So let me just run through, you know, then being able to talk to dead people pretty much consistently. I had this woman come in. This is the one that sticks out the most, but I mean, I talk to dead people all the time. Honestly, when I'm doing one-on-ones, there are so many other factors in the room, let's say other dimensions in the room, that I know that this is a team effort when I'm working with people to help them be dreamt by the dream that wants to dream them, which gives them the ultimate life, right? So for me, it was just really interesting and so great to see you too, doctor. It's interesting how many doctors I work with, right? So, and how many doctors I know. I love the thinking, let's just say. So I was sitting in my office and I had this wonderful woman come in to see me. And while I was in there, I have a big window in my office. And while I was in there, an interesting thing happened. She told me that her little niece, who had had a genetic condition that was the light of everyone's life in her family, had recently passed away. And I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And she said, "Well, something really strange happened, Jennifer." And the strange thing that happened is that, first of all, I want to know why children die early. Why would she get a disease like that and die? That doesn't seem fair. And then she said, the second thing is our family was very divided. And this is the only time we've been coming together. Our family had been having arguments left, right, and center. And then I want to say that a few days after the funeral, there was this beautiful bird that we have all the windows were closed, all the doors were closed, but this bird just shows up in our house. And I said, well, let's start with the first item, which is remember, that from the survival basis down here, we don't ever want children to die. From surviving and from understanding life from a three-dimensional status, these are our children, these are our nieces and nephews. We don't want children to die. And we don't, it hurts our heart and we miss them because they're free, of course. They're in freedom. And what I can tell you when they're on the other side is they have found an ecstatic place of blessed rest from this world. And this little girl came in specifically and chose this genetic disease where she would degrade and eventually die. I think it's 7 or 8 years old. And then I said, but we're infinite, you understand? And so from our infinite nature, you just go from one world, this three-dimensional world, into another multidimensional world, and you're free, and you tend to be able to understand everything. And we talked a little bit about that, and her mind came to peace, and she understood because of the next thing that I said, as I could feel this little girl in the room who was had such adorable energy. And the little girl said, or expressed, or basically, there's blocks of thought. It's not so much words. For me, for other people, it can be words. And what she shared was so profound. She said, you know, uh, I came in because I wanted to see my power to build bridges between people who swore to be each other's enemies. I'm telling this story for a reason, because look at what's happening in the world right now. And in her world, her death brought everybody to the funeral, and people forgave each other because of this little one's death. A crisis brought them together, but she was such a love that she kind of left this lingering residue of what else matters. And then as we were sitting there, we started talking about the bird in the house. And I had just less than a week before this communion with this woman, had a woman in my office. And when I had that woman in my office, this bird hit the window. And it kept hitting the window from the outside and just not getting the memo. And then I realized, oh, it's because we're supposed to pay attention to something. And I said, who just passed? And she said, my mother just passed, this woman in my office a week prior to this one who had the little girl who died. And she and I talked about her mother, and we moved through. So, I mean, it was the final time I saw this woman, because we literally got all the messages she needed after working for a year just from this bird letting her know a bunch of truths. And I shared this with the woman and the bird in the house, and she goes, I knew it. I knew that bird in the house after my niece died. I knew it was her. I knew it. And oftentimes, if we pay attention, birds or flying things are just like me with the praying mantis yesterday, are little messengers, because when someone is beyond the veil, they can inhabit. Well, we can do that even without being beyond the veil. We can actually take our consciousness through other animals, but that's a whole other subject. We just taught that in our program, Innate Abilities. However, imagine that they can inhabit side by side, almost like a temporary walk-in to birds and flying things, so that you pay attention, butterflies, all of these kinds of things. And so she said, I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. And she said, I was kind of the conduit for everyone coming together. I said, uh-huh. And she said, well, I think it was her thanking me and telling me that she loved me. And I told her, if that's what you felt, then let's have that be real. So I want you to know that these beautiful, infinite beings, just like you are, have taught me over the years so many things. And there is one more near-death experience, but I'll share it another time. But I will say that I had hid this even from myself, because I didn't realize that going beyond the veil and then coming back had actually given me, it is after that all of these abilities started to drop in. And I hesitate, I see so many things. I see things for my friends, for my family. I specifically see so much for my husband. I don't tell him most of it. So, unless he asks me, even recently seeing so many things, and I just listen to higher levels, because it can be disempowering unless it's something really important, because we can all do this. But there were 3 takeaways that from that particular near-death experience. And the first takeaway is this, that we are never not supported. We always have assistance on the other side. Always. We have a year-long program called flight school. I cannot tell you, there's at least a third of the people that get to flight school because it's probably a half. Because someone that loves them from beyond, whether they knew it or not, and half of times, like 25% of the time, even the money they have in order to do that year-long program came from the person passing. But they kind of get ushered into my world somehow, and I don't even know how they make it there. And then usually I'll figure it out. And so we're so supported. We're so supported. We're so loved, right? Oftentimes those people pass so that the person can be free to become themselves. And that's what that year-long program is about. Let's just put a caboose on that train just so you know why. The second thing is the dying is not bad. Dying and coming back shows you our infinite nature and that everything makes sense from the other side. Everything you ever did makes so much sense. And that it really is a choice to be here. And you chose to be here. I proved it by choosing to come back, with a very, very inflamed brain. And the third thing is that don't hide from yourself. Don't hide from yourself. Don't pretend. Let everything come up to leave. Really let yourself answer the question, what's the greatest thing I can do with the skills I already have that would make the biggest difference in the least amount of time, having you wake up being inspired and going to bed knowing that you did what you came to the planet for. Become the person that gets to do that, not has to do it, that has the privilege of doing that. And I have the privilege of doing this and being with you. And generally, you'll see that my heart is on my sleeve because what else is there? Even this last weekend, I co-led a workshop with somebody and the vulnerability caused magic to happen. It was beautiful. But that's what happens when you carry nothing and are available for everything because you know how supported you are. Again, you don't have to have an NDE, but you can probably feel a little bit of love and support. I'm going to tell you a final story. Actually, I know we're going a little bit longer than usual. Sorry, producer. My Jessie, my dear, sweet assistant, who I love so much, she was talking to me this morning. And I'm not going to divulge personal information about her, but let's say she wasn't feeling the greatest. And she goes, Jennifer, this is like the second time where from talking to you, you affected me. Like me feeling bad is going away from like I don't understand what's going on. And that's the first time she ever shared that with me, which really touched me. And I just want to say that as you stop apologizing for being yourself, as you just relinquish the need to be ashamed, as you choose all the versions of you that creation sees, you embody codes, you embody a beingness that, scientifically speaking, actually affects others so deeply. So who you be, especially if you're a doctor or a therapist. I work with so many of them. People who work with people, could be a massage therapist, could be a dentist. People who work with people give off photon packages of light. Another thing I started to see after a near-death experience, give off photon packages of light. Those photons emanate the gift of who you are and information about where you've been and the bridges you built within yourself. And the people that you're with every day are actually affected by all of that. So understand, truly, just walking around the earth, you make a difference by the light that you emanate. And thank you, Jesse, for reminding me of that and allowing me to share this with everybody here. Who you be, who you are, actually matters. And that's what came. I'm even thinking right now of when I first was with Adam. He had some beautiful dead people around him too. And it's just interesting, isn't it? Just all interesting, my friends. So I look forward to communing with you. And if you're so called, absolutely, please check out our Costa Rica trip, not to make a sales pitch, but to appeal to the resonance and all of the support team that you have, to let yourself drop into your knowing that maybe it's time to make a shift, or maybe it's time to actually remember for your own self the codes that would expand your life to that level of thriving. And yeah, maybe you said to yourself the two words, it's time. On that note, I'm such a fan of your thriving life. Please follow and like us and share us with other people. Share this podcast with other people. I'm so grateful for everyone who showed up today. And thank you also to my producer, Adam, for just thinking of an awesome title for today. And we'll see you guys next Friday.